All right, folks, it's been about a week since Charlie Kirk was brutally assassinated by a lunatic who appears to have been trying to please his trans boyfriend, despite what the media wants you to think. Rosh Hashanah's coming up. Maybe you're going to visit your folks. That's the Jewish New Year, I believe. Everyone has a big break at school. And if you're visiting your family and they're liberals, they're going to tell you that Charlie Kirk kind of had it coming. He said some horrific things. 50% of the time, they'll be taking a quote that is technically kind of true, like MLK was an awful person, but there'll be zero context to it, and they'll totally misinterpret what he says. And in that case, they'll make it into, I hate civil rights activists because I don't want black people to thrive. What's really going on in examples like that one, where they did technically get the actual words right, is they've totally misconstrued where he's coming from. So in that sense, he didn't say that. And then the other ones, he didn't say at all. So like a hungry horse desperate for hay, these liberals will create straw men and then devour them. And why do they do that? I think they're overwhelmed by what happened, and they're so disgusted that they have trouble digesting it. That's why they eat straw. So they dehumanize him. And then it becomes, well, fuck around and find out, you had it coming. You said, he didn't say, he said, Cenk. Can you lower me a bit? My head's touching the ceiling here. So I have 10 examples here of people misinterpreting what he said or just downright lying. And one interesting thing, I'm going to start it with Don Lemon, whose new thing is doing streeters. He's going back to the beginning of a career. And I thought this was interesting. It's two moderate, sane black women who are probably Christian, and their attitude seems to be sort of like Abe Lincoln. Like, well, he thought blacks are second-class citizens, but he did free the slaves. So their attitude, and this is the common attitude amongst the sane left. The insane left is just, kill him, I'm glad he's dead, who's next? They seem to list Ben Shapiro and J.K. Rowling as their next two priorities. I never would have guessed those two. But go to the Don Lemon clip before we start, because they do the Don Lemon but thing. Like he goes, well, he shouldn't have been killed, but, and then they go, no, he shouldn't have been killed. But the frustrating thing is all three of them have him wrong. They're talking about a misinterpretation of the man.
There are folks, I get criticism all the time since I've been doing it, and I've said no one deserved to die that way. I don't believe in political violence, but this is what the man said. Or I'll say, I saw someone online, my friend said this, and then they'll take it to say that I'm saying that. Yeah. I'm just asking the questions. How I feel about it, if you want to know, he shouldn't have died. It was horrible. I don't believe in political violence. But that said, he wasn't a saint or a civil rights leader or icon, as you guys are making him out to be. He said a lot of offensive things. They're saying these offensive things are not offensive. They're not racist. They're not sexist. They're saying these things are just truth, that he was speaking truth. What do you say to that?
I don't necessarily agree that it was truth. With my sis over here, I believe that he was speaking division. A lot of the MAGA language, right, and causing division within our country.
But there's no question.
Okay.
That the Republican Party.
So was he causing division? Let's start with the most obvious one. Stephen King pointed this out, that Charlie Kirk, as Stephen King quoted him, he advocated stoning gays to death. Just saying. Now, Stephen King has since apologized for this, but this is an amazing example of the left purposely misinterpreting what was said because they want a villain. They want to create a straw man. Stephen, do you really believe that Charlie Kirk wants gays to be lined up against a wall, then we all grab a nice peewee football-sized rock and start pelting them at him? Is that what you believe? So what he actually said was, he was talking about this child star, Miss Rachel. We can see all your bookmarks and everything there, dude. It looks tacky. No, go either back to the Charlie Kirk thing or the apology. I don't know what this one is you're showing. Is that what he actually said? Right. So there's Stephen King saying it. And then I think if that's a video, it's what he actually said. Yeah, let's play what he actually said.
6:3-5. The second part is Leviticus 19. So you love God. So you must love his law. How do you love somebody?
Here we go, folks.
You love them by telling them the truth, not by confirming or affirming their sin. And it says, by the way, Miss Rachel, you might want to crack open that Bible of yours. In a lesser referenced part of the same part of Scripture is in Leviticus 18, is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying.
Okay.
So, Miss Rachel, you quote...
A lot of libs, too, will cling on to that and go, see, he did say that. If you're honest with yourself, you have the same interpretation I do, which is Miss Rachel was using the Bible, and she's a radical lefty, pro-Palestine, river to the sea type, and she teaches all our kids every time they turn on YouTube. If you're honest with yourself, you realize what he's saying is, okay, love thy neighbor, which is what she was using to talk about gays. Yes, we can do that, but you can't cherry pick it. There's some very intense scripture in there, including stoned to death. So do you want to quote the Bible constantly, or are you just going to cherry pick? It was a warning against cherry picking the Bible. Again, willful denial of what was really going on. Let's go to number 2. This is my favorite one. This goes around a lot. And this is common. I don't know if I included this in the notes, but there was some like reporter who was offered $10,000 to find him saying this. But it is, black women do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. You have to go steal a white person spot. And that's sort of what the Don Lemon women were probably thinking of. They were like, well, he does think we're stupid, but you shouldn't shoot him in the head. He doesn't think you're stupid. What's the context? Do we have the context here? What's the next link? Is it the video of him talking about this? Oh, this was just, I don't know. I kind of got the feeling there's a real supply and demand problem with people who think black women are too stupid to do anything. So when someone even implies it, they go running to the presses without even looking it up and start defending black women and saying, they're not idiots. They're good people. And it's, again, Charlie Kirk, the king of the straw men. So what did he actually say? He said, I think we have the video here. Yeah, this might be it.
Used for so long that we don't seem to understand what it is anymore. And it's what people call Charlie Kirk, in part for this statement about several prominent black women.
In fact, you know, if we would have said 3 weeks ago, Blake, if we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
Was that rude and insensitive of Charlie? Yes.
No, it wasn't. Fuck them. We're talking, I thought it was okay to speak truth to power. I thought black people can't be racist because white people hold the power. So the black women he's talking about are phenomenally powerful. The First Lady, Supreme Court Judge, Congresswoman. And he was saying what they're saying. Joy Reid said to her audience, I would not be here were it not for affirmative action. She goes, I would have not gotten into Harvard, or was it Yale or Princeton, the Ivy League school she got her stupid film degree in. I would not have got that were it not for DEI. In other words, they are saying, I'm not qualified. They are saying black women do not, these black women, they're saying we do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. So we take what they just confessed to, Charlie Kirk exposed, and now he is making a blanket statement about all black women. This one, I would say, is probably the most commonly misconstrued quote of his. And here's the thing. Who says this? Who is like, yeah, black women, they just don't have the brain power. There's just no exceptions. It's impossible for a black. Now you might, why don't you just take that quote and say that I said it? like throwing rocks at gays, saying black women can't be smart. Your villain is ridiculous. And the other funny thing about all of these quotes is I'm trying to keep this as short as I can, but 99% of what he said was trying to improve you, trying to improve black people, trying to improve Jewish people, trying to improve relationships between all of these different people, right and left. He was trying to improve relationships and individuals. And they go, no, I'm going to try to find the 1%, the 0.1% of things that I can bastardize. This is how he felt about black people.
Black America has been used by the tools as tools by the left as trying to say, keep on voting for us, keep on supporting us. I believe that black America can be revitalized, can be wealthier, can be richer, can have stronger families. And I refuse to live under the bigotry of low expectations
like DEI.
that the left constantly uses. If we look at the last 60 years, if we are honest with ourselves, have been detrimental for black America. Incomes going down. In 1965, 25% of black Americans had a mother and 75% had a mother and father when they were raised. That is now down to 25%. 3 out of 4 of black Americans are raised without a solid mother and father in the home. If we're serious about saving the country, we must rebuild the family.
What a racist. Number 3. And a lot of the tweets when you see these fucking idiots advocating for his assassination, does YouTube have to censor this? Like, would they have to blur that out? That's so weird. They always list like the top 5. And I think my first 5 here are the top 5. So, yeah, a lot of the times when I show the source, you're going to see a bunch of people saying it. But they'll say he said 10 times in a row. He said Cenk. He was talking to Cenk Uygur, whose parents unfortunately gave him a retarded Turkish first name. By the way, here's something controversial I'm saying. If you're an immigrant to this country and you have a weird last name like Uygur, go with Mike. You know how many times he probably had to spell that when he was signing up for something? Just make it Mike, please. Assimilate. So here he is saying Cenk.
So you're comparing abortion to the Holocaust?
Absolutely,
we'll get to that one.
I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse. It's worse. Like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live as a capitalist. Okay? I live what I believe. What do I do? I get charity every single year. Hold on. Come on, Cenk. Let's go.
What do you do? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts,
believe? We won't go through all those. I've never seen him mad before. That's the only clip I've seen of him losing his temper. But Cenk will do that to you because he's a fucking liar. The big brown buffalo is constantly lying, saying he never called Trump Hitler. And he called Trump Hitler on a daily basis. This one is a very famous one. I'm getting all the good ones in the front here because I know how you young people click away. Number 4, we made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s. So do you really believe that he thinks that we should go back to Jim Crow? Do you really think that Charlie Kirk thought we should have separate drinking fountains and we should bring that back? He doesn't want equality. Is that what you honestly believe? Move that over a bit.
Lot of white folks commenting on my last video asking for proof that Charlie Kirk was an outspoken racist. And there are many horrible quotes to choose from, but there's one that I haven't seen get quite as much attention that I believe is head and shoulders worse than all the rest. In December of 2023, Kirk said, quote, "We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s," end quote.
See how he said, end quote. Charlie Kirk has explained his reasoning behind this multiple times.
And these sorry to interrupt.
Have to leave out the context in order to...
But he always, when he says something like MLK was an awful guy or we didn't pass this, passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake, he always qualifies it with this is going to sound incredibly controversial and I'm going to make a lot of enemies with this, but allow me to explain. And then he says the incendiary, counterintuitive quote, like he didn't say this, but a perfect example of a counterintuitive quote is more guns, less crime. It sounds weird. I don't understand that. But it's a factual phenomenon. I mean, Paloma, Texas has more guns than anyone, and 0 people get murdered there. We'll get to that in a second with the Second Amendment. But that's how you have an interesting conversation. You say something outside of the box, and people go, wait, what? And you go, no, hold on. It's not what you think it is. But they ignore the not what you think it is part because they don't think.
Paint the picture they want to paint. Listen to Charlie Kirk talking about this.
You said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so the parts of the Civil Rights Act were great, but the way it's now being implemented to force men in female bathrooms to push forward of the trans agenda, the intent of the Civil Rights Act is way beyond what it was originally authored for.
But the intent specifically originally was to
Well, that's interesting. So the intent and the law are two different things. So the intent was noble, which was to say that no American can be not allowed into a place of business based on the color of their skin or their ethnic heritage. Totally agreement with that.
Did we see what he just said?
Are two different things. So the intent was noble, which was to say that no American can be not allowed into a place of business based on the color of their skin or their ethnic heritage. Totally agreement with that.
So he said he's totally in agreement with that. He also said it was noble. Let's actually look at the definition of noble real quick.
Okay, enough.
Number 2 is the definition.
With the over-explaining. But yeah, gremlins, very cute little guys, very noble guys, very good guys. But what happened with these gremlins? They got sunlight. They got water on them. And now they look like Sammy Davis Jr. And you got to put them in the blender. They're out of fucking control. So he brought up the Civil Rights Act in an interesting way to show you that it's been bastardized. But you didn't take in that part, did you? So what are we at now? 4 or 5? The Second Amendment is worth some gun deaths. So this is what Amber Tamblyn enjoyed. Let's hear it from another mouth.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. He did say that gun deaths were an acceptable side effect of gun rights. Live by the sword.
Ha 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 ha. Those little kids have no dad. There's so much to this that's difficult to explain to a fucking liberal. First of all, the Second Amendment, the strictest gun laws in the Western world would include the gun he got shot with. He didn't get shot with some crazy AR-15 jacked up with a bump stock or whatever, with a 4 on the floor and a souped-up Hemi. It was Grandpa Joe's, literally Grandpa Joe's, bolt-action rifle. They have them. They shoot fucking prairie dogs with them. So this isn't really about gun laws. And secondly, he was talking about a world where we have the Second Amendment. In that world, there's less gun deaths because we're all armed and we can protect ourselves. Liberals cannot conceive of that. Again, back to John Lott's book, More Guns, Less Crime. When we're all armed, it's not the same thing as what we're dealing with right now. All these gun deaths in Chicago are illegal guns, by the way. And also, you don't even understand the concept of what his argument was. We could get rid of cavities tomorrow if we had the government send in the National Guard and make sure everyone in every single household brush the living shit out of their teeth. Cavities are worth it to not have that happen. He was obviously not talking about people being assassinated for having a discussion. And he also was obviously, and again, I can't say this word enough, obviously, like you know this yourself when you giggle at the foot of your bed. You know that he didn't think gun deaths were nothing. Well, there's some gun deaths. At least I get my guns. Fuck you, Baltimore, south side of Chicago, South Central, East New York. You know he doesn't think that. What did he actually say? I think we have it here. You'll never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry. Yeah, I think it's in this if you scroll down. Or maybe it's the top one. Like, you know what he's really on trial for from the left with these quotes? Being interesting, being colorful. It was Alex Jones's biggest crime, too. God forbid you should not be a gray communist who speaks in monotone where no words can be taken out of context. I've had people say that to me, too. Like some chick at ABC News. She said, I explained the context of my incendiary quote, and she goes, well, you know, you wouldn't be in this situation if you didn't make quotes like that, and you said things that couldn't be misinterpreted. Like an NPC? Like, who talks like that? So now we have to all talk in ways that cannot be misinterpreted by anyone with malicious intent who wants to do a hit piece? Fuck you. Play it. What do you mean screwy? It won't play?
How do we
Here we go.
convince them that it's an...
It just stopped spontaneously? That's a yes or no question. Did you stop it?
And a lot of people are upset. But I'm seeing people argue for the other side that they want to take our Second Amendment or rights away. How do we convince them that it's important to have the right to defend ourselves and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I'm a big Second Amendment fan, but I think most politicians are cowards when it comes to defending why we have a Second Amendment. This is why I would not be a good politician, or maybe I would, I don't know, but because I actually speak my mind. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Come on.
Never seen that clap before.
And if that talk scares you, wow, that's radical, Charlie. I don't know about that. Well, then you have not really read any of the literature of our founding fathers. Yep. Number two, you've not read any 20th century history. You're just living in Narnia. By the way, if you were actually living in Narnia, you would be wiser than wherever you're living, because C.S. Lewis was really smart. So I don't know what alternative universe you're living in. Yep.
All right, so sorry. This is a really long seminar and a really long explanation. We don't have a lot of time. The crux of his argument was, he said, you will never live in a society where you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. This is nonsense. It's drivel, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It's rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. By the way, the gun deaths are illegal guns, black-on-black crime, 20 a day. Even when you hear about kids, more kids die from guns than cancer. Yeah, it's at some gangster's house where he left the Glock on the couch and some random kid with no diaper on grabbed it and blew his head off. Sorry to laugh, but you've totally ignored the different cultures we have in this country. As Chris Plant says, the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. Anyway, I'm sullying his reputation with my own incendiary quotes. Number 6. This just got sent to me by my pal, Captain Ron, Lieutenant Ron. Money ruined American culture. I kind of got in shit for this. When I did that video, 10 Things I Hate About the Goddamn, I think it was originally called The Goddamn Motherfucking Jews. It was all about Jewish self-sabotage and how Jews and Christians should come together. It was done in a facetious and silly way, in a character's voice, but that was the general crux of my argument. You have disproportionately secular atheists, really, Jewish groups like the ADL, sabotaging their own world, sabotaging the West and sabotaging Judaism, sabotaging Jews. So this is what he was getting at when he said, and he never once said Jewish money. That's just a magic word they stuck on him. And isn't it funny how these from the river to the sea, pro-Palestine, fuck Israel liberals can't wait to accuse someone of anti-Semitism? Anyway, here's the link to it from, like, it's absolutely everywhere. These are like the main ones they keep listing. And it's weird because even if I take their insane interpretation, you don't deserve to die. It's not funny when someone says much worse things than this. Well, I saw you celebrating them getting fired, Gavin. Yeah, all's fair in love and war. It's time for hypocrisy. I don't want you to have free speech. You started this war. You got me fired. 15 years ago, I said they're just mentally ill gays, and you shut down my ad agency. Been fired from every job I ever had because of this bullshit culture. So now I want you to have a little sweet taste. But let's see what he actually said about this Jewish money.
here's what what Jewish Democrats or Jews in general are going to have to make a decision. Until you crush the cultural Marxist lens of which they view the world, you will never actually be able to build support for Israel. You cannot subsidize support.
Here he is telling secular, basically. He called them democratic Jews, but he means secular Jews. Here he is explaining to secular Jews that you're hurting Israel and other non-secular Jews. So you're bad for your own people. Not really anti-Semitic, I'm afraid.
And play footsie with cultural Marxism and have a future for the state of Israel. So you have to choose. And Jews have been some of the largest funders of cultural Marxist ideas and supporters of those ideas over the last 30 or 40 years. Stop supporting causes that hate you. Now you might say, well, how is one thing applied to the other? If you train a generation to view everything through an oppressor-oppressed lens, they will apply that lens to the Israel-Hamas conflict. The same way that they apply it to the police issue, the gender issue, good guy, bad guy, somebody on top, somebody on bottom. Until you cleanse that ideology from the hierarchy and the academic elite of the West, there will not be a safe future. I'm not going to say Israel won't exist, but Israel will be in jeopardy.
Do you know how many Orthodox and conservative Jews are screaming this exact same shit to their secular counterparts? Do you know how many times I've screamed this exact point? But now it's Jewish money is ruining America. Fuck off. This is what really pisses me off about all of these misinterpretations. They're lies. You know what he means. You know you're incurious because you got your pound of flesh, you found your Nazi, and you run with it. You don't actually look back and go, did I really get a Nazi? You're the baddies, not us.
As long as the Western children of the West, are being taught with primarily Jewish dollars subsidizing it to view everything through oppressor-oppressed dynamic. Until you shed that ideology, you will not be able to build the case for Israel because they view Israel as an oppressor.
Doy. And I think a lot of secular liberal Jews have amnesia because I talked to them after the whole October 7th and all the students going, fuck Israel. And they go, you created a golem, right? They hate you not more than me. And you thought it would all be MAGA hats in the crowd? There's not one MAGA hat. It's all refugees, radical blacks, and the students that you trained in Marxism. And they're like, yeah, but Columbia said they're dropping the policy. And I think they're back to MAGA now. They're back to Trump as the Nazi. Okay. Thanks for learning. Number 7, children should witness public executions. Okay. Amber Tamblyn, my old pal, my old neighbor, quite literally, she said, wish granted, because Charlie Kirk's 3-year-old daughter did witness his quote-unquote public execution. It's much worse than you think if you don't know the details. She heard the bang of the gun that shot her dad, and she ran towards her father because that's what people do. That's what little kids do when they're scared. The mother had to stop her. You can't run to your father. He's dying. He's bleeding to death. So I don't want you holding him. But let's get into the wish granted thing. This was not a public execution for a pedophile. The text is all corrupt. This was a public execution for an innocent man. Do you think that Charlie Kirk was saying that people should be publicly executed for having remotely controversial ideas? I don't think he meant that. I think he was talking about serial murderers. I think he was talking about child rapists. He was talking about the worst people in society. And yes, public executions should be brought back. Ironically, the man who murdered him should be publicly executed. We just learned today that Luigi Mangione cannot be executed because it wasn't terrorism, which I don't understand. But it's a good deterrent. It works. Dylan Roof wasn't on his way to a black church. He was on his way to a school, but he realized there's armed guards there and he didn't want to get shot.
Same with the Minnesota guy recently, right? He went to a different school and didn't want to die. He went to
and he said as much.
Yeah, he did.
He said that I wanted to maximize my death. I didn't want to die. So yes, public executions would work. And it's an interesting philosophical question. You know, we could talk about it for hours, not unlike abortion. But these people go, he wanted kids to see people die. Well, his kids saw him die. Again, a willful misinterpretation of the truth. But let's hear him say this incredibly controversial thing, which I totally agree with, by the way.
In fact, I even think that we should bring back, public executions on certain people. No, but think about it. I think that, and you guys should laugh, it should be public.
Stop. Have you noticed that? That's what I was talking about earlier. He says something wildly controversial, and he goes, hold on. I know that sounds crazy to you, but believe me, I've thought about this, and then explains the context. No, I'll stick with the controversy, thanks, and include my own interpretation of it.
It should be quick. It should be televised. By the way, you could fund the government
kids to watch it.
You could have brought to you by Coca-Cola. And no, I'm not kidding.
It's being colorful here.
In fact, I even think that
this
we
is
should
a hit
bring back,
piece, by the way.
Public executions
when I'm showing you
on
this
certain people. No, but
quote,
think about
this is someone who fucking
and you guys
hates
should
him.
laugh. It should be public. It should be quick. It should be.
Some of these crimes are so heinous. Is that the sum of these crimes? By the way, I never saw him include children in this. So let's do he never said kids. Is it this? Well, hold on. Give it a chance, though. Might be a longer version. If it's the same link. It's not the same link. Oh, wait. Yes, it is the same link. Okay. So to call what happened to him, what he was saying should happen to serial pedophile rapists. Come on. And I think her contention is, it was, Breitbart spun it because they're conservative. No, we know what you said. But she won't experience any cancellation. She's in Hollywood. This is her wheelhouse. She also said once, I've gotten real ugly in my recent years. We should have an ugly off. I think we'd be tied. I remember one time she said she could drink me under the table. Similarly, no. 8. I would want my 9-year-old to have the baby if she was. If there's one thing that would need context, it would be something like that. But let's see what he actually said. Now, this is at one of those mass debates where you take on 50 people, which can you imagine any of these cocksuckers who were talking about how glad they are that he's dead? Can you imagine them taking on 50 people or his entire career? I mean, how many people has he taken on in debates?
I could imagine them taking on 50 people with a Tommy gun. That's the only way they fucking do it nowadays.
Yeah. Thousands. He's taken on thousands of people with these points. And she's doing rage baiting, of course. If you ever argue with liberals, they do this all the time, especially with daughters. I never take the bait. I just go, we're not bringing my daughter into this. Shut the fuck up. But not only do they bring your daughter into it and say, do you ever miss her or something? They go, what if she was and got pregnant? And then she adds, this happens all the time. Okay. Gotcha.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped and she was going to give birth and she would, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that?
His daughter's 3, by the way.
Baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered.
Happens all the time.
Oh, okay, great. So that's insane.
But let me tell you why. No, hold on. Let me ask you a question.
So hold on. What did he say? He said the baby would be delivered. That became, I want my mythical 9-year-old to get raped. Number 9. Well, let's hear his explanation, actually. Did you cut away from it already? Oh, that's the whole thing. Okay. Number 9, gay people are a disease. So in this analogy, he says being gay is a sin. I'm not going to glorify the sin. I'm a drunk. I don't go on alcoholic pride parades and pour beer all over myself while other guys are spraying whiskey on me.
Call that a pub crawl.
I'm not proud of a pub crawl. But they have taken their own assumption, which is a very left-wing concept, that alcoholism is a disease, which I don't agree with. It's a self-indulgence. And they've made him say gay people are a disease. Okay, what did you actually say, Charlie? These are by the way, a lot of these clips I'm showing you are edited short in order to make him look worse. I'm showing you leftist hit piece edits, and they're still valid and good.
In our piece that Kirk describes King as, quote, a bad guy. It's true.
He's going through a bunch. I thought I had this timed right.
Very, very radical view that the country made a mistake when it passed the Civil Rights Act.
Okay, we did
also
those.
As we note in the piece, Kirk has previously described Kirk as a hero and a civil rights icon. It's true. I used to be wrong. What inspired Kirk to shift his view on MLK? Why does Kirk think that MLK is a bad guy? When Kirk says that MLK says, quote, one good thing he didn't believe, what does he mean by that? Why does Kirk believe passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake? Now, again, apparently they don't listen to the show because we do that at least once a week, right? Once a week we talk about why the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. Yeah, and so it's very simple. So how do you love somebody? You love them so much to correct their error. Yeah. And so let's just, take the pride conversation out because people think it's an identification, which it's not. It's just sexual behavior. But it's if you meet an alcoholic or you meet a drug addict, do you affirm their struggle? No. You say, you're better than this. Let's get you free from that. Let's get you free from that activity. Now, we don't know what part Elon is saying is the actual truth. So let's go through this.
All right, so again, this is a montage of him being horrible. And a lot of these quotes, and this is what's big, I saved the MLK one to last because MLK is literally a saint in the eye of liberals. He's a god, he's a royalty. To disparage him is to blaspheme not just MLK, but America, Black America, equality. It's beyond racism to say anything bad about this man because he was so good. He did seem like a pretty nice guy, but he was also an asshole. He was a sex addict. He loved fucking white prostitutes and beating the shit out of them. His academic career, the doctor thing is bullshit. That was all plagiarized. It's me talking to Jim Goat about it actually I think it's our second or third biggest YouTube video. And the reason that number 10, you got to pull up number 10 first. MLK was an awful guy. The reason that sounds so shocking to you is because you're closed-minded and you only know the version that your Marxist teacher, and he was a Marxist, destroyed the auto industry in Detroit. You're only aware of the Marxist spoon-fed version of MLK you got in school. And you don't know any other things outside of that because you're closed-minded. So when you hear MLK was awful, it goes back to all their other stupid tropes. In this house, we believe love is love, water is life, no human is illegal. If you disagree with me, you hate love, you hate water. We believe science is real. If you disagree with me, you don't think science is real. It's called moving the goalposts. So he said something controversial about MLK, and he backed it up. Show the first thing. You should pull up this video. Zoom out a bit so people can look it up on their own. That's me and Jim.
Compound censored
YouTube.
20 minutes long. Great video.
Jim has left the classroom. He's left the reservation, and he's saying things that your teachers don't tell you about that man. Which, in a less incurious world, you'd hear something about an icon like MLK being bad, and you go, "Wait, what?" You wouldn't just go, "Well, that guy's a piece of shit. You should shoot him." No, you would go, "Well, where's he getting that from? What's the problem with MLK?" But there's a lot of people that have strayed from the Marxist teachers that brainwash us all and likely brainwash the shooter and the shooter's trans boyfriend. I blame teachers for a lot of this violence that we're getting now because you're told that Trump is a Nazi and we're taking away women's rights and we're going to bring slavery back. So it feels noble to kill one of us because we're trying to end the world. And then in the same breath, they go, "We need to kill them and I can't wait for the West to fall." It's satanic chaos worshiping at this point. But let's check in on Chad Jackson because I know it's hard to hear me blaspheme the gods if my skin color isn't like that.
Put King and Kirk on the same footing is an erroneous thing to do. While Kirk actually lived out the values that he talked about publicly, Dr. King did not. We know that Dr. King was involved in orgies. He liked to sleep with prostitutes, and that according to his best friend, Ralph Abernathy, he even beat up a few women. While Charlie Kirk believed in the fundamental tenets of the Christian faith and the virgin birth, that Jesus resurrected from the dead, and the literal existence of heaven and hell, Dr. King didn't believe in any of those things according to his very own writings. We also know that there was a philosophical difference between the two men when it comes to Marxism. Now, while it is true that both men denounced Marxism in public, unlike King, Charlie never advocated for a redistribution of wealth, for social justice. These are things that King did advocate for. And so it's safe to say that when Kirk denounced Marxism, he was being honest and truthful, whereas when King denounced Marxism, he was being a deceptive liar. Finally, when King was assassinated in 1968, there were a flurry of riots that took place across the country, whereas it's now been a few days since Kirk's assassination, and we haven't seen any riots at all. This is a testament to the truth and conviction behind the words that Charlie Kirk spoke compared to the sophistry behind the words that Martin Luther King spoke. I would add that although Charlie Kirk and Dr. King were both heavily involved in the political realm, their approach to politics was also strikingly different. Charlie Kirk advocated for people to get right with Christ, for men to step up and be men, for women to be virtuous women of honor. He believed that the government has run amok and we must begin to roll back a lot of that overgrowth in order that we might get back to the true edicts of the Constitution. Whereas King believed that we should expand the role of government, that the government should have a foothold when it comes to things like housing, jobs, and wealth redistribution. The so-called ministers who have taken up the baton after King's passing are apostates, race hustlers, and opportunists. They thrive on race division and conflict. They anger their own people and keep them bitter and poor while they enrich themselves. Meanwhile, I see videos of young men in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death saying, I've never been to church before, but I feel inclined now to go to church because that's the kind of thing that Charlie Kirk talked about. I feel inclined to be a better husband, to be a better man, to be a better friend, because that's the kind of person that Charlie Kirk was. This is a testament to fruit. Charlie Kirk was a producer of good fruit, while Dr. King was a producer of bad fruit. None of this is to make light of Dr. King's death. Anytime somebody takes a bullet to the head or neck, it's a tragedy. And my hope for King was that he repented. But we know that the night before he was assassinated, he slept with 2 women and beat up another woman. And so it's hard to say, while Charlie Kirk took a bullet to the neck while educating college students on what is real versus what is false. To put King and Kirk on this.
So I don't like reading. I like to speak from the heart, but I want to get this right. Charlie Kirk didn't say controversial things. He said uncomfortable truths. He wasn't a sophist. I love the use of that word. He was a realist, and more importantly, he was consistent. He is a martyr, whether you like it or not. He has changed the culture just as much as MLK did. You can twist his words and pretend he was racist or he hated gays or loved gun deaths or wanted his daughter to be. That's your right, but we know the truth, and the truth is, je suis Charlie. We are all Charlie. He stood for all of us. And on when you're on holiday visiting your folks, your family over the next few days, they should probably know that the quotes that they are hammering you about are bullshit.